Good. Tim?
Not at the scales. Sorry? Not at the scales.
Tim Weiskell. I'm curious, in the discussion of CCS, why there's been avoidance of the most obvious and continuous and proved technology, namely living plants. The whole point of fossil fuels is that it's fossilized CCS, right? And at the current structure of things internationally, we're actually expending fossil fuels to destroy topsoils, which are the biggest bank of carbon, far bigger than the atmosphere. If, again, we get Dan on it, sort of, change the incentives, the green lights, the red lights, couldn't we reorganize agriculture to become less, not just less petro-intensive, but actually carbon stored focused on building topsoils, building fertility over the long run, building the world's food supply, increasing its nutrition, and capturing the carbon at the same time. Now, you can argue that scale is the problem here. But in fact, the IPCC did studies recently under Professor Mumma from Tufts University and costed it out, not just in terms of active agricultural production, but the reclamation of grasslands. If you rethink herding on grasslands, right, from domestics through the ungulates in the African plains, you can switch the carbon release, which we're currently fostering, to carbon capture.
Thank you. Panelists, you want to take that one on?
All I know is we're going to need to get rid of a very large amount of CO2 over this century, and we're going to need to get rid of it permanently so that it doesn't leak back out again in the next century. I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't think anybody knows how we're going to do that. It's true that a tree is not a bad way of capturing carbon right now, but it also needs things like water, and it also tends to grow well in places that we might want to use to grow food. And so there are obvious tensions there. If, on the other hand, the world's largest industry, and I keep repeating this because I think it's very important to remind ourselves of the fact that we are dealing with the world's largest industry, if the world's largest industry were looking for ways to get rid of CO2, they'll find it. They will find them. I'm very confident about that because this is an industry that's proved itself incredibly resilient at finding new ways of doing things. You know, the oil started to run out, they went and started fracking. You know, there's so many ways in which this industry has responded to technical challenges. On this one, I will just take one issue with the idea that we do this with a carbon tax. I don't think any conceivable carbon tax would actually motivate the scale of carbon dioxide disposal that we need to actually solve the problem. But let me just give you before that makes you feel gloomy, you can cheer up by noting that the world's largest CO2 disposal project, which comes on stream this year in a country, Australia, which is not known for its progressive stance on climate, mainly implemented by Chevron, a company that's also not known for its progressive stance on climate. It's the Gorgon gas facility, where they're going to be re-injecting CO2 underground on the largest scale of any facility around in the world. The reason they're doing it is because they were told by the Western Australian state government to do it as a licensing condition for developing the gas. And as somebody who was in the room said to me, we thought about it for 5 minutes and we said yes. If it was made a licensing condition of continuing to dig up fossil carbon that you get rid of the CO2, the industry would solve the problem.
Comments? Claire, Varun?
Well, I mean, basically,
I recognise this is a minority view.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's a good idea. You know, let's do that. Well, who's going to do that? How do we get that to happen? Oh, I think we're going to need everyone in this room demanding it to happen. And so that's why we need the societal pressure to get these types of shifts to happen. On the land use, you know, I worked in forestry for quite a long time. The best way to change, and indeed in grasslands as well, rangelands, the best way to change the decisions, the way things happen at the local level, is to give them, to give local communities rights to that forest. They immediately start to protect it. They prevent people coming in and stealing the timber. Likewise, if you give pastoralists rights, reciprocal rights they have to be for pastoralists, but rights over their grazing land, they actually change the way that they manage it. You get a lot more carbon sequestration, but it's never going to solve the volume of the problem that we have right now. It's all good, and the agricultural shifts that need to be made, yep, lots happening at the moment. The problem is that a lot of the people that are engaged in climate-smart agriculture see this as a technical problem that can be solved just purely with innovation in seeds and so on. It's a risk problem. Farmers struggle with a lot of risk. They're facing everyday risks about current climate variability, let alone the type of increase in extreme events. They don't adopt new technologies when they're under positions of extreme risk. We have to reduce the risk to enable them to take up some of the opportunities. But yes, you can sequester a lot more carbon than we are at the moment, and we can shift from fossil fuel intensive agriculture, but we've known this for a long time. I'm feeling a bit tired, I'm afraid, but I'm just, it's a bit like, actually we need demand. We need people demanding the change, and we need giving the right people rights. We need to be managing the risk differently, and then we'll get the shifts we need.
Good. Thank you. We're nearly done.